want to do a check-in on my specific goals that I had for 2024. And one of those was to read a specific 12 books in 2024. And I needed to read them or unhaul them, which is, you know, a pretty common goal list that folks on YouTube do. And I was very successful in unhauling because I have none to show you. Yeah, I have. So I started my channel in February of 2024, which was a goal. Check, we did that. Yay. And I'm really enjoying having my channel. I did this list before I had a channel, so I did it in January. And I think my thinking was books that I was kind of I didn't know if I was interested in anymore. And so I've kind of changed my thinking for next year. If you've seen during Vlogmas, right before Vlogmas, I've done a lot of unhauling. If I'm not interested in it, I'm gonna get rid of it because I have plenty of books to read, right? So let's go through the list of my 12 and 24 very quickly. And yeah, so there are two that I unhauled I read a little bit of them, like first chapter maybe not even that much, but I just wasn't interested in the premise to begin with. And that was The Dive from Clausen's Pier by Anne Packer and The Shipping News by Annie Prolox. I just wasn't interested in them. Then I DNF'd 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so I DNF'd 5. I recently, my most recent DNF was The Condition by Jennifer Haig. I DNF'd Oxygen by Carol Casella. I DNF'd The Honorary Council by Graham Greene. I DNF'd Mercy by Jodi Picoult. And I DNF'd Middlesex by Jeffrey Eugenides. So that's 7 that I just either tried and didn't like. The DNFs, I tried them. And I tried a little bit of the other 2. So that's 7. So that means I read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Nope. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm not good at math. I read 5 of them. I read A Prayer for Owen Meany by John Irving, which is the story of Owen Meany, told by his friend, Johnny, was that his name? It was interesting. It was slow. It was long. I buddy read this, and yeah, I do remember it because it wasn't that long ago. I want to say, I don't know, September, something like that. I liked Owen Meany as a character in most of the book. I liked the relationship between Owen and Johnny. John? Was that even his name? I don't know. I've read John Irving before. I read one of his books when I was in college for a class. And he's not an author that I'm going to say absolutely not, I'm never going to read him again. But he's not an author that I'm necessarily going to be drawn to. Like, I like his writing okay, but I think the other book that I read, was just an average 3-star 2. So I don't know. I also read I Capture the Castle by Dodie Smith. This had been on my TBR for a long time, as had Owen Meany. I Capture the Castle tells the story of two sisters living in a rundown castle, and I liked it for about 3/4 of the novel. I really liked the character development. I liked the sister relationship. I liked the setting, you know, rundown castle, spending your days running up the hills and all of those things I loved. The last part of the novel went to a place I did not like. And so I think I gave that about a 3-star as well. I read last month, We Were the Mulvaneys by Joyce Carol Oates. This was the story of a family in New York. And there were 3 brothers and 1 sister, and there is an assault that happens to the sister while she's in high school, and it's basically the story of how it impacts the rest of the family. It was fine. It was long. It was told from the perspective of the youngest son, who was about 10 when the incident happened. The older 2 boys were able to basically just leave. They graduated and, you know, moved on to other things. But the youngest boy really saw kind of the breakdown of the family, the parents, the relationship with the sister, all that kind of stuff. So it was an interesting family saga. I gave it a 3-star. And then I also read Her Fearful Symmetry by Audrey Niffenegger. That was just a weird book. That was a weird book. That, again, was about sisters, but it took it to a whole new level. And I've since learned a lot about Audrey Niffenegger, and I just really don't think she's an author for me. I think I gave that 2 stars. And then I read Empire Falls by Richard Russo. Again, it was fine. It was along the same lines as We Were the Mulvaneys. It was about a family and in a rundown town, and divorced parents of a teenager. And it's really focused on the dad who runs the Empire Grill, I think. And him just trying to keep his daughter kind of in school and out of trouble. And then, you know, his trying to keep the business going, and his interaction with this woman who kind of owns the town. And yeah, it was fine. I did like the relationship between the dad and the daughter. We don't see those relationships often in books, and I really liked how that was handled. But I did unhaul all of my Richard Russo because I don't know. I'm just not interested. It was kind of dull. And nothing grabbing me. So basically the list ended up with pretty much all duds. Like, none of the books that I read or unhauled have left any lasting impression, except that I don't want to read Audrey Niffenegger anymore, which is disappointing because The Time Traveler's Wife was one of my favorite books the year that came out. So that was my 12 and 24. Now, I have seen different folks doing 25 and 25. They're doing different numbers. I am such a mood reader, and it was so hard for me to get through those 12 that I'm still going to do 12 and 25. We're just going to stick with 12, one a month, because they're backlist books, most of them that I've chosen. And like I said, I am looking at books that are more interesting to me, because I've unhauled a lot of the books that were similar, that were kind of along the same lines as the 12 and 24. So let's go through the list of 12 and 25. So first up, this book has been on my shelves for a minute when I was collecting the Pulitzer Prize winning books. This is The Yearling by Marjorie Kinnan Royals. No novel better epitomizes the love between a child and a pet than The Yearling. Young Jody adopts an orphaned fawn he calls Flag and makes it a part of his family and his best friend. But life in the Florida backwoods is harsh, and so as his family fights off wolves, bears, and even alligators and faces failure in their tenuous subsistence farming, Jody must finally part with his dear animal friend. And you're going to say, Michelle, why are you going to read this? You don't want the animal to die or whatever. I feel like I really want to read this book. I really do want to read this book. I might do it in middle grade March, and this might be the book that makes me cry, that finally makes me cry. Because I tear up at some of the books, but I don't know. But yeah, so we're gonna try that one. These are in no particular order. I've got Lisa C., The Island of Sea Women. I read my first Lisa C. this month, The Flower Net, which I didn't love. The writing style I liked, the story I didn't. This is set on a Korean island of Jeju. The Island of Sea Women follows Maija and Young-suk, two girls from very different backgrounds, as they begin working in the sea with their village's all-female diving collective. Over many decades, through the Japanese colonism of the 1930s and 1940s, World War II, the Korean War, and the era of cell phones and wetsuits for the women divers, Maija and Young-suk developed the closest of bonds. Nevertheless, their differences are impossible to ignore. Maija is the daughter of a Japanese collaborator, forever marking her, and Young-suk was born into a long line of Hangyu, and will inherit her mother's position leading the divers. After hundreds of dives and years of friendship, forces outside their control or push their relationship to the breaking point. All of that interests me. That part of history I don't know that much about, and I'm really curious about how Lisa C. handles that story. Then we've got All Adults Here by Emma Straub. So when I first got back into reading, what year did this come out? 2020. I bought this book from my mom, and her and I were going to read it together, and she just never got into it. But I have never read this author and would like to. So we're going to put this on our 12 and 25. Astrid, strict mother to 3 grown-up children, has been keeping a secret. Just as she is finally warming up to share her secret with her family, a forgotten memory from her younger parenting days is jostled loose, and it's not a good one. The secrets are multiplying, it seems, and so are her mistakes. Suddenly, Astrid realizes she may not have been quite the parent she always thought she was. But to what consequence, and is it too late to set things right? As I've mentioned on here before, I'm not reading the whole synopses anymore because a lot of times it spoils stuff. So, I've never read Heather Gutenkopf, and it sounds like she would be a writer I would really enjoy. This is Weight of Silence, The Weight of Silence, which I've had on my TBR since Borders existed in Georgia, which has been so long ago. It happens quietly one August morning. As dawn's shimmering light drenches the humid Iowa air, two families awaken to find their little girls have gone missing in the night. 7-year-old Callie Clark is sweet, gentle, a dreamer who suffers from selective mutism brought on by tragedy that pulled her deep into silence as a toddler. Callie's mother, Antonia, tried to be the best mother she could within the confines of marriage to a mostly absent, often angry husband. Now, though she denies that her husband could be involved in the possible abduction, she fears her decision to stay in her marriage has cost her more than her daughter's voice. So, a child abduction story with the parents kind of at the center. Another of the Pulitzer Prize winning books that I had on my shelf is Less by Andrew Sean Greer. This has been made, there's been a series, more have come out from this. I love the cover. There's just so many ways that this could go with a cover like that. Who says you can't run away from your problems? You're a failed novelist about to turn 50. A wedding invitation arrives in the mail. Your boyfriend of the past 9 years is engaged to someone else. You can't say yes, it would be too awkward, and you can't say no, it would look like defeat. On your desk are a series of invitations to half-baked literary events around the world. Question: how do you arrange to skip town? Answer: you accept them all. I'm looking forward to that. I've heard really great things about that one. Whoops. All right. And then this one I hauled recently, as in the last year, but I've wanted to read it for a really long time. So this is The Street by Anne Petrie. Set in Harlem in the 1940s. It's the story of Ludi Johnson, a young single Black woman determined to create a life of integrity and dignity for herself and her young son. Ludi's strength of spirit and world of cramped tenements, poverty, and despair that surround her are powerfully evoked by Petrie's realistic and hard-hitting prose. Originally published in 1946 and winner of the Houghton Mifflin Literary Fellowship Award, this is a moving and disturbing tale of ghetto life. So I'm looking forward to that. All right, this is Everything Belongs to Us by Eugen Grace Wartz. Seoul, 1978. At South Korea's top university, the nation's best and brightest compete to join the professional elite of an authoritarian regime. Success could lead to a life of rarefied privilege and wealth. Failure means being left irrevocably behind. For childhood friends Ji-sun and Namin, the stakes couldn't be more different. Ji-sun, the daughter of a powerful business mogul, grew up on a mountainside estate with lush gardens and a dedicated chauffeur. Namin's parents run a tented food cart from dawn to curfew. Her sister works in a shoe factory. Now, Ji-sun wants as little to do with her father's world as possible, abandoning her schoolwork in favor of the underground activist movement, while Min studies tirelessly in the service of one goal: to launch herself and her family out of poverty. I've had this on my shelves for years. It came out in 2017. I probably got it around then too. And the cover is really cool too. All right, so the hours is, I'm going to read these two together. Virginia Woolf's Mrs. Dalloway. I've mentioned before that Virginia Woolf is an author I've tried. She's not the easiest author to read for me. But this is Mrs. Dalloway. That brilliant novel explores the hidden springs of thought and action in one day of a woman's life, direct and vivid in her account of the details of Clarissa Dalloway's preparations for a party she is to give that evening. Virginia Woolf ultimately manages to reveal much more. For it is the feelings behind these daily events, the social alliances the shopkeepers exchange, the fact of death, that give Mrs. Dalloway its texture and richness and make it so memorable. So I want to finally get to this one. And then I'm going to read The Hours by Michael Cunningham. This is the story of three women: Clarissa Vaughn, who one New York morning goes about planning a party in honor of a beloved friend; Laura Brown, who in the 1950s Los Angeles suburbs slowly begins to feel the constraints of a perfect family and home; and Virginia Woolf, recuperating with her husband in a London suburb and beginning to write Mrs. Dalloway. By the end of the novels, the stories have intertwined and finally come together in an act of subtle and haunting grace. Yeah, so these two will be read in succession. All right, and then Betty Smith, who wrote A Tree Grows from Brooklyn, which is one of my favorite books. She also wrote a few other ones. This is Joy in the Morning. And I bought this right after I read A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, and I haven't gotten to it yet. In Brooklyn, New York in 1927, Carl Brown and Annie McGarry meet and fall in love. Though only 18, Annie travels alone to the Midwestern University where Carl is studying law to marry him. Little did they know how difficult their first year of marriage would be in a faraway place with little money and a few friends. So, early years of marriage. Another Pulitzer Prize winning book. This is A Confederacy of Dunces by John Kennedy Toole. I don't know how I haven't read this yet, but I haven't. It's an American comic masterpiece. John Kennedy Toole's hero is one Ignatius J. Riley. Huge, obese, fractious, fastidious, a latter-day Gargantua, a Don Quixote of the French Quarter. His story bursts with wholly original characters. It takes place in New Orleans, incredible true-to-life dialogue, zany series of high and low comic adventures. So, I'm not sure this is one of the ones that I'm kind of hesitant about. I'm not sure this is going to be for me, but we'll try it. And then the last one that I really want to read, because I've started it on multiple occasions and really liked what I read, but then I never got back to it, and that is Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky. Not good at saying his name. Yeah, I've enjoyed the little bit that I've read. I would really like to get back to it. Through the story of the brilliant but conflicted young Raskolnikov. I can't. Russian names are really hard for me. And the murder he commits, Dostoevsky explores the theme of redemption through suffering. It appeared in 1866. It's now one of the most famous and influential novels in world literature. The poverty-stricken Raskolnikov, a talented student, devises a theory about extraordinary men being above the law, since in their brilliance they think new thoughts and so contribute to society. He then sets out to prove his theory by murdering a vile, cynical old pawnbroker and her sister. The act brings Raskolnikov into contact with his own buried conscience and with two characters, the deeply religious Sonia, who has endured great suffering, and Porphyry, the intelligent and discerning official who is charged with investigating the murder. So yeah, I'm really excited to finally read this. And these are the 12. These are the 12 in 2025 that I'm going to read off my very back list. Let's see if I can get them all. I think that, like I said, the ones I'm most nervous about are The Yearling because of animal death and The Confederacy of Dunces because I'm not like a super... I don't know that I seek out humorous books, but, you know, I do like to laugh. So, see. Oh my goodness. Is this 12? Did I? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Can I pick them up? Oh. Oh. So that's my 12 and 25. What books are you going to read in 2025 that have been on your shelves for a long time? Let me know if you've read any of these and any warnings you have about them. And I will see you very soon. Have a great day. Bye.